We're going to call this second meeting of 2025 to order. A binder labeled public copy of materials is at the front of on the table by the door. Public may also access school board agendas by visiting rrps.org. Any changes? I don't have any, if there are any. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Recognition of visitor input. I had two sign up ahead of time. Courtney Smith is first.
I can go second.
Okay. Beth Peterson is up. We have 3 minutes. Reminder, 3 minutes for.
Are you the timekeeper, Lisa? Okay.
Cody's got it.
Great.
Good evening. My name is Beth Peterson. I went to Virginia High School. My kids went to Eveleth Gilbert School, and my grandchildren now attend Rock Ridge schools. I've been both the parent whose child was harmed and the parent whose child caused the harm. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here to ask you to evaluate the hiring process that led to the recent hiring of an individual whose past statements, have shown a clear racial bias. It is deeply concerning that someone with such a record has been entrusted with the care of our children. There was a clear breakdown in that process, and as a result, our students, our community, and our school has been harmed. I was at the listening session, and I want to thank Superintendent Noel Schmidt for attending, as I believe that discomfort often leads to growth. During the session, he explained the hiring process. And I understand that the video in question did not show up on a background check. However, I also understand that social media is examined as part of the hiring process, and the people who hired this individual were aware of the video. Racism has no place in spaces where our children learn, grow, and discover who they are. Our schools should be inclusive, safe, and respectful, where every student, regardless of their background, feels valued and has the opportunity to thrive. Hiring someone who has expressed views that undermine these principles sends a message to our students and staff that certain forms of bigotry are tolerated within our schools. This risks creating an environment where children, especially our Black and brown children, may feel unsafe and unwelcome. It sends the wrong message to them that their worth and dignity may be compromised by the very people who are entrusted with shaping their futures. Pardon me. I urge you to revisit your hiring processes. The community that was harmed has already shared a path forward that has not been followed. I encourage the board to reflect on the long-term consequences this hiring will have on our students, staff, and community. If we are truly committed to fostering an educational environment that promotes unity and understanding, we must stand firm in rejecting racism in all forms. Please show that our commitment to our children is paramount. They are watching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Courtney Smith, next.
Hi. Some of you know this, but I had a brain injury, so sometimes I take a while or I stumble. Just ignore that if I do that. It's common. So, good evening, school board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening regarding my concerns. Some of you know this as previous board members, and others of you do not. But our 4th grade student last year was relentlessly bullied and was physically assaulted numerous times. As all of the things have come up in the news, it reminded me of all the same things we wondered why they weren't taken care of properly. We pulled him on at least 2 different occasions, hoping that changes would be made, as he did not feel safe at school, nor did I feel confident at all that he would actually be safe at school. He unfortunately continues to have deficits today due to the repeated concussions he received while at school, and frankly, he's a completely different child. I contacted Superintendent Noel Schmidt on numerous occasions last year while pleading for him to intervene so my child could safely attend school. It took 8 or 9 months of phone calls and emails for the school board to the school board for him to finally respond to me for the first time this fall. There still to this day has not been any acknowledgement of the harm it has caused our son, or an apology for the lack of action on such a serious matter. I contacted Pacer on numerous occasions as we dealt with this. They had recommended that I file a lawsuit for failing to keep him safe at school. That's never been my desire or intention. My only goal is specifically just to make sure this doesn't happen to other kids. That's the only thing that's important. And an acknowledgement of where things went wrong so that they don't continue to go wrong. You can't change what already happened to him, but unless you acknowledge where all of the things went wrong, then it continues to happen. I chose to file a formal complaint with the school board, with the previous board. The board policy said it would be investigated, as all I've ever wanted was an apology and to ensure that it doesn't happen again. No such investigation ever occurred, despite me following up several times. As some of you were not board members at the time, I would be happy to forward the details of those incidents and the written correspondence that I had submitted. I realize you guys have a lot on your plates and many obligations outside of the school board. Without acknowledgement and accountability, things don't truly change regardless of how many new policies are put in place. When we moved here 9 years ago, we were excited to have our children attend here. Our two oldest children graduated from Evelyn Gilbert.
Time is up, your 3 minutes is.
Okay, I can't finish.
You can wrap it up quick?
Okay. We were excited to have our two youngest kids graduate. Unfortunately, despite having so many wonderful teachers over the years, that's no longer a reality for us or many other families. My sincere hope is that you as a board will investigate the failings that happened here so that no other family has to go through it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all who signed up. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Yes.
State your name when you get to the podium, please.
My name is Sarafia Gravel. Good evening, members of the school board and community. I stand here tonight to address a painful truth: the lack of accountability and follow-through from the school board regarding systemic racism and inequity in our schools. These failures are not just abstract concerns, they're harmful realities for our students of color and their families. 2 years ago, a horrifying video created by a Rockridge student calling for the mass murder of Black people in the form of a Holocaust surfaced. This appalling act of hate underscored the urgent need for meaningful action to ensure the safety and well-being of students of color. In response, VEMA, community leaders, stepped forward in good faith to support your diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic planning process. We shared experiences, offered actionable recommendations, including adopting an anti-racism policy and creating safe spaces for students of color to share their stories. But instead of progress, we were met with resistance. Our recommendations were ignored, dismissed, or outright contradicted. When we asked how you would ensure the safety and dignity of students of color, the responses were vague and dismissive. Worse still, this school board has repeatedly failed to prioritize these urgent concerns on its agenda, relegating this issue to a 3-minute public participation segment. It's not accountability. It's an abdication of your responsibility. Racism is not an abstract concept. It is a violent reality. Rockridge Public Schools has continually demonstrated systemic failures, not only in the hiring of individuals who have racist history, whose actions perpetuate harm, but also in the repeated mishandling of racist incidents within this district. Your inaction sends a clear and damaging message to students of color and their families. Their safety, dignity, and humanity are secondary concerns. In the recent letter from Superintendent Schmidt, you speak of forgiveness as though it's something you can bestow. But forgiveness is not yours to grant. That forgiveness must come from the people who were harmed, the students and families who have endured systemic racism and negligence. It is their pain, their stories, and their dignity that must be centered in this conversation, not your comfort or absolution. While the letter offers assurance on policies and paperwork, words without actions do nothing to address the lived realities of students of color.
3 minutes, ma'am.
One last thing.
Sure.
I would just like to know where your accountability is on these policies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I will be very quick.
You can say your name, please, sir? You can say your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll get to that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Jackson. I'm a concerned community resident. Now, in these days of diversity and inclusion, according to the laws of this nation, and that no child be left behind, here today is on trial. Today, these issues are not just about black and white. It's about the problem of the whole way of life for these students here at Rockridge. From bullying to racism, these students has received a check of insufficient funds, an account of a negative balance. As for inclusion and diversity, the 21st century is bleak and almost hopeless for these kids here today. This board can see the hurt and it's causing the students and the parents here. Change must be from the top of any list of moving forward into the 21st century. Change from the board to the teachers, the principals, and the superintendent of this beautiful school on the outside and the inside. But there's a cloud over this school which blocks out the beautiful array of sunshine that these kids can bring to the school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nathaniel Coward. I'm representing VEMA here. I'll be quick like everybody else, I hope. Some of you know me, some of you don't. So some of this you're gonna see me as a parent, and that's different than my title, okay? Nigger Holocaust. Y'all seem very okay with forgiveness without asking how did it affect the students and the families in the community. You know, I wonder what would have happened had I left my kids with this individual. Didn't know that she was there and came back and saw this was incurable in the kids. Y'all put her in danger. Y'all created an atmosphere that something really bad could happen. Parents would walk in and be like, what is this woman doing here with our kids? Anything could happen. So you clearly didn't think about that. You clearly more thought about her than the people she harmed. Yeah, I know she's 15 when this happened, but she's an adult now. You guys are responsible for the safety of these kids. Superintendent, you know you're up under the school board. I hope this is a catalyst for you other people that's here, you know, run from these positions. Don't vote for them. This is what they allowed. They all agreed to it. They knew who she was. So I don't understand that kind of idea of thinking. I also wonder, what could she would have taught? What would she be able to teach these children? She's in a leadership position which y'all have left her in. What could she taught them? What could she say to them? Y'all don't, I mean, what that shows the community. Oh, we can say this kind of stuff. Look who's our teacher. Why can't we do it? She got a job, everything's cool. That's all they would have gotten. So unfortunately, she didn't have the help she could have gotten when she was younger, but she's doing it now. She offered to step down, so that's the first step. She resigned for the position. That's good. It shows that she's taking initiative, that she cares. The only thing I have to add to that is, I just don't understand this mindset. Like, how could you collectively drop that ball? Like, didn't you not think about y'all students, parents, the community that was harmed, and never crossed y'all mind? Like, what they gotta stand up and protest in front of the school, when is it gonna click that we can't allow this in our schools? So yes, this has been something we've talked with, Rock Ridge, with Noel. Same stuff keep happening. We still meeting with people having the same problems. It shouldn't take this to happen, you know, for y'all to act. But if it was my kid and I'm sending them to a place and they keep getting hurt, I'm not gonna sit and talk. I'm not gonna sit and be like, well, let's hold hands and kumbaya. We'll just keep talking and keep waiting. Waiting.
Your 3 minutes up, sir.
Waiting is a privilege. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Grayson Coward. So if you will, Nathaniel Coward, my parents. I wasn't planning on being here today, so I don't got nothing written. But when I heard about the Ainsley situation, I thought it was pretty interesting. Because when I put myself in that position, if I thought, hey, what if I wasn't one of the kids of color in a dance class? How would I feel if I walked in and saw somebody who called for the extermination of my people, the extermination of something I can't escape, my skin? How would I feel? And I don't think it'd be, oh, it rubbed me the wrong way. I think I'd be I'd be scared. I'd be scared because I know exactly how she thinks, what she said, and it makes you scared. I know she was 15. She was 15, but I think another thing that you guys have to understand is that acts of racism is traumatizing. So she did it at 15. 2 years later, we can't just rub it off because whatever kids she harmed are still probably thinking about it to this day. So I don't think 2 years is. It's just a huge overlook. I don't understand how that happened. Another thing, I saw a lot of head shaking when Dad was talking about it's an overlook on the school board. I don't understand how you're trying to put the blame on somebody else or saying it's not the people who hired her's fault. That's just weird to me. But I don't know. I have something else to say. What else was it? Wait. I forgot. That's it.
If it comes to you, you can email us too.
Sure.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others like to speak?
How you guys doing? My name is Howard Anthony. Former parent of the district when you guys were in Virginia. Transferred my daughter because of some of the reasons we talk about today. I didn't have any intentions on speaking, but as I'm sitting here, I get filled with emotion, especially to sit here and watch this young brother come up here and express how he feels. I kind of feel obligated. I'm going to be quick. I'm just going to say something to these guys and say something to you guys too, because the place that we want to get to, there has to be some level of understanding. There's some things that you guys may not understand about us. There's some things that we don't understand about you, maybe some thinking differences. But I do want to point out, we had Nathaniel come up and he talked about how dismissive you were to what we're all talking about here today, the hiring of the dance teacher. I just really want to point out, because we have some voters here, and maybe you guys don't understand either, but even after what happened with the video, nothing being done, the hire with no disregard, no regard for anybody else, after all that, and even as we sit here today, you guys sit up and you look really dismissive still, okay? And we're more focused on a 3-minute timer than the actual issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, board. My name is Paul Gregerson. I'm Executive Director of Cultures, Humanities, and Arts on the Iron Range. We're also known as Chair. Our primary responsibility is to advocate, provide opportunities from people of all walks of life across the Iron Range. Forgive me if I go a little bit long here. I'm going to do my best to keep it under 3 minutes. But if I do happen to go a little bit over, please forgive me. And let's not lose sight of the fact that all of us are limited to 3 minutes tonight, because there were some folks last year who were uncomfortable learning the truth about race and the history of racism in our country, and abused the public forum process. So I live in the Rockridge School District. My wife and I have lived there for 10 years. I consider it my responsibility as a white man in our community to be an advocate for those on the those who are marginalized on every aspect of our community. My wife and I don't have kids. We don't have them in the district, but you know what? We're paying a heck of a lot more in taxes than we were before this merge. And we don't mind doing that because it's the right thing to do, because we believe that education is the most powerful tool we can provide our community's kids. That being said, with that tax increase, we expected a higher standard of education and leadership. You guys failed on this. I'm sorry. Those of you who know me know that I'm blunt. I don't hold two of you responsible because you were not part of the board prior, but there was a huge systematic breakdown in the hiring of Ms. Erickson. I mean, maybe you don't believe that there was, maybe you're not willing to take responsibility. I don't know, that's up to you guys. But from the dance coach who thought it would be a good idea to hire her, being the dance coach is part of her job at Rockridge. Her primary job at Rockridge is to be the Indigenous Education Director. Okay, if you can't see the conflict of interest there and the fact that she was willing to put athletics above academics and safety of our kids, then I don't know what we can expect of you moving forward. Okay, the hiring process went through the activities director after that. Certainly he knows who she was. Certainly he remembers what she said. He's very focused on athletics. But he's not always the greatest communicator, and he's not always, just because you run a criminal background check on somebody doesn't mean you vetted their background. Okay, we preach to our kids all the time: watch out what you put on Facebook, watch out what you put on social media, because that's going to affect you down the road. When you guys know what she did and then approve her hiring, you're saying to all of the students at Rockridge that it doesn't matter what you say or do or put online, because the rules, they don't matter. From Josh Lampa, the activities director, it went over to administration and up to you all. I'm just,
3 minutes are up, sir.
Okay. I just want to know what conversations you all had about this leading up to the vote. I just think for you to hide behind the fact that she was a minor at the time, which is a complete cop-out, is just an easy way to sweep it under the rug. And the fact there was no conversation about her hiring at the school board meeting, at the previous 2 school board meetings, speaks volumes about this situation. So thank you very much. I also want you all to know that we met with Noel Schmidt last week. It was a listening session. There was a lot of frustration and anger in that room, and it was all directed at Noel Schmidt. He doesn't deserve that. He took everything like a champ. When people were raising their concerns passionately, those were the concerns that wanted you all to hear, but I just want you to know that Noel really took one for the team. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay. Done. Thank you. Consent agenda, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Support by Westby, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. 5-1, we have the auditor's report. They're gonna zoom in?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Turn this up just a little bit.
Looks like it was.
Is that better? Can you hear me?
Hurry up just a little bit more here. We should be good, I think.
Okay, how about now?
Perfect.
Thumbs up? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to present tonight. On these remote presentations, I know there's a little bit of a delay sometimes on how quickly we get the information present or how the information comes across. And if you're able to hear me okay or not. But so please feel free to ask questions as you have them or reach out to me after the meeting and I'll be happy to answer anything that you have. I guess before I get started, a couple things that I wanted to point out. We have no disagreements with management, no difficulties performing the audit. We do appreciate all the help that we got from staff in turning this around. It's always a challenge on a first-year audit, especially with all that you have going on. So we appreciate all the help. It does make a difference for us to get the audit done. The other soapbox item I have, just kind of a word of caution for everybody. I'm sure you've heard this a lot, but as far as phishing scams are concerned, we've had a few districts fall victim to some phishing by, I guess, perpetrators. What they've done is anytime that let's just say you pay something electronically, whether it be direct deposit, a direct payment to a contractor, the bad guys, so to speak, have stolen the identity of the email and or the vendor, the employee, and even gotten a hold of some forms that are internal forms being used to change routing and account numbers. So just keep an eye on that. If you ever get a request or your staff gets a request to change routing or account numbers, to please follow up with a phone call. It's maybe a little bit busy, but it's really hard to get that money back if it gets stolen. So that's kind of my soapbox item for the year, since we've had a few districts have problems with that. Diving into the audit report then, I'm going to share my screen. Can somebody give me a thumbs up if you see the audited financial statements? Perfect. I'm going to, if you want to follow along, I think you might have PDF copies right now, but I'm going to go to the pages and I'll refer to these page numbers as I go through. So first thing is pages 2 through 4. This is the independent auditor's report, where we've issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements that's considered a good or a clean opinion, that the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It is management's responsibility for the financial statements as well as all the footnotes within them, and then our responsibility as auditors to ensure that they are reasonably stated in accordance with GAAP, which is what our opinion is stating, is that we believe that they are. So a good opinion, so to speak, on the audit report. We did have one correction of an error just related to some capital asset activity that we fixed this year, just based off of historical data and information that we did during our testing of beginning balances. So just wanted to note that as well. The second section of the audit report starts on page 5, runs through page 11. This is known as management's discussion and analysis section, a high-level overview of some condensed information that does provide some comparative information and provides things like your general fund revenues compared to last year, general fund expenditures compared to last year. If you're looking for a snapshot of what the year consisted of, this would be the section to take a peek at, and it might generate some questions. The first audited financial statement is on pages 12 and 13. This is the statement of net position. And what this statement is designed to do is to provide you with basically a full accrual financial statement for the district. It includes things like your capital assets and related debt, the net pension liability, which you probably spoke about in years past, related to your involvement in the state-run pension plans. But at the end, or at the bottom of page 13, you're going to see the total net position at the district is $36,159,130. That'd be on a full accrual level. That'd be your equity or retained earnings in the entity or in the district. The next page then shows the changes in a full accrual level for the district. About 5 lines to the bottom, you can see the change in net position is a positive $3,723,128. This, of course, includes things like changes within that net pension liability, depreciation expense, et cetera. So just keep that in mind. When we get to the fund statements next, you'll see that how that kind of correlates with your capital asset activity, et cetera. The next page is the balance sheet. And this is broken down by basically your 3 major funds: general fund, debt service fund, and building construction fund. Then we have a column for your non-major funds, which is your community service, food service, post-employment debt service funds. And so if you look on the general fund, 2 lines in the bottom, the overall fund balance is $6,463,004. The number that you see right above that, the unassigned portion, $3,685,081. Those are the dollars that you basically have available to spend. They're not earmarked or restricted for any purpose, so you can spend them. Basically, that's what you have for operating expenses, et cetera, going forward. One of the things that we do as a health of the district is we take that number divided by your general fund expenditures, and you're at 7.37%. That's a very conservative way to look at this calculation, but last year, the same calculation, you're at 3.67%. So it has increased. Couple reasons. One is you have spent down some of your restricted dollars. So that has increased your unassigned dollars. You also had some committed for some capital asset activities from last year. For health, we like to see districts at that 10 to 25% range to be healthy. So just keeping an eye on that to make sure that those balances are reviewed. Because if you go under 5%, then it does get a little bit dicey as far as being in possible statutory operating debt, et cetera. But for right now, like I said, you did increase almost 4% from the prior year as far as that number is concerned. You also have positive balances in all of the other funds at year end as well, so just keep that in mind that there's no red flags as far as the other funds. Page 17 then shows the changes for the current year. That first column of numbers that you see there, about 5 lines to the bottom, it had a deficit of $3,269,506. That's for the general fund. A large portion of that is capital outlay related expenditures. You can see about $13,510,301 of capital outlay within the general fund that was spent. You also had in the building fund, which is the third column of numbers there, you had some debt issued for project expenditures, spent about $18.9 million of the building fund, leaving about $1.3 million left to spend going forward from the construction fund. Overall, when you see the building fund, that obviously was money to be spent down. That had the largest activity of going down about $4.3 million from the prior year. The next couple pages I'll go through is on pages 19 and 20. There are a couple funds that we basically say you're holding for others. One is the scholarship fund, $180,000 set aside for the scholarship fund. And then you have a post-employment trust fund with about $12.5 million, which was down about $68,000 to the prior year, pretty much a break even considering the size of that fund. The next several pages 21 through 47, are the footnotes to the financial statements. I won't go into much detail here, but if you're looking for debt schedules, capital asset activity, your accounting policies, et cetera, you're going to find it in that section. But for right now, let's go to page 48. Page 48 shows the budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund. You can see the bottom right number is the difference between your final budget and actual. So had anticipated on your final budget of going up $1.2 million, was down $3.2 million. So was a negative variance in your budget of about $4.5 million overall. Most of that was due to expenditures, about $13.2 million more expenditures than your final budget, mostly within capital outlay and costs for projects that you had going on. Pages 54 and 55, this is your non-major funds. So if you're looking for the activity in your food service, community service fund, and post-employment debt service fund, you can see 2 lines to the bottom. All 3 of those funds have positive fund balances at year end. Page 56 shows a nice snapshot of all the different, basically the buckets of money that you have within each fund and category. So the column that we look at for health is the third column from the right, that balance end of year. You can see we're looking for things like deficits. So the only thing that I see on here is the LTFM does have a deficit of $172,000, which a lot of times you spend the money down and then part of your 10-year plan or whatever is to recoup those over the course of time. So no red flags necessarily there. The other thing I guess I'll point out is about maybe a third of the way from the bottom of the page, you can see school readiness. did require a $457,000 transfer to make that whole. Otherwise, that would have been in a deficit fund balance. So just keep that in mind that, the school readiness program, as well as ECFE, are running deficits and might require yearly transfers if everything stays the same going forward. So just a couple things I wanted to point out. Then we get into the reporting section of the audit report. So page 57 is the Minnesota Legal Compliance Report. The state of Minnesota provides us with a guide where we test things like bid work, pledged collateral, conflicts of interest. We did have a clean report there, no issues noted during the testing that we did there. So that's a clean report. And then lastly, we have the government auditing standards letter. What this is a real high-level overview of your internal control structure at the district. We have 4 findings that we've reported this year. And what they are is the first one is related to separation of duties in the business office. There are just some things that probably should be separated out a little bit more. We do think that you have things in place to help mitigate those risks, such as reviewing and approving bills at the board meetings, et cetera. But the risk we do think exists with the size of the business office, that there are some separation of duties issues. The next one is the auditor preparation of the financial statements. Same thing as prior years here. Whenever the auditors prepare the financial statements, we have this comment basically saying that we did them. We do have your staff review and approve them before issuing, so we do believe that's mitigated, but we wanted to bring that to your attention. The next finding is related to accounting records to support the amounts in the general ledger. There were a few accounts that were not reconciled when we started the audit. Like I said before, you have lots of activity with the capital assets, various investment accounts, et cetera. So it did require a little bit of work or help from us as auditors to help with that process, and maybe delayed the audit getting done as sooner than it could have, but we did work through those and got those done by year end, but we did want to bring that to your attention. And then the last one is just the amount of journal entries that you have. There are a significant amount of journal entries, making sure that you have controls and processes in place to have somebody be reviewing and approving those journal entries outside of the person making them. So just a couple suggestions there, to help, maybe make things a little bit more efficient and reduce risks that you'd have with journal entries that were made. So, very quick run through of the audit report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have, or I can circle back to any page that you'd like me to go to in the audit report.
Anybody have any questions?
Not questions, it's just a lot of information really fast, so I'm trying to process
the money. So for example, money at a basketball game, it comes in. So that money is counted by somebody else, not the person who collected the money. And then somebody else deposits the money. So we have added some additional safeguards so we don't have the same person. What gets districts into trouble is when one person controls all the money and there's no check on that person. And that's what I believe the auditor is talking about there. We don't want that to happen because it makes it easier for someone to do something they shouldn't be doing. Yeah. So after the auditor report, we'll sit down with Andrea and we'll talk some more about what can we do so that we do have more redundancy. So we have multiple people looking at the money.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I just had another question he had mentioned about the $457,000 for the school readiness. Will we be hearing more later in the meeting about something that might help remedy that?
You will. Now keep in mind that the auditor's report is for last year's budget. So we're always a little bit of a delay here. So you did some changes to help that, and then you're going to hear some other options tonight that it's true. You did have a deficit there. I believe some of the things you've done since that time are going to close that. So the next time the auditor gives the report, because now you're charging parents. So you have some revenue coming in. When the auditor was looking at yours, you really don't have revenue coming in for some of those areas. So I believe that's going to be a better situation.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And then, like I mentioned before, if you do have questions at a later time, like I said, it went through the things pretty quick. I'm always open for anybody wanting to email me, or I can do another meeting as well. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Have a good night.
You too.
5.2, she's ready to go. Angie Williams, Laurentian Elementary, Principal's Report.
Greetings from the Laurentian Elementary staff. As a staff, we want to extend a warm welcome to our two board members, Director Bonner and Director Westby. Welcome, and also give a warm welcome back to Mr. Reardon and to Ms. Latiger. So we look forward to a positive, productive year working together with all of you. It's been about 3 months since I've been here last. It was actually the end of October, so I have to go through the month of November, December, and January with you of some things that have been happening at Laurentian Elementary. We had, in November, our conferences with our parents, and we had a really good turnout. At the elementary level, it's always a very good turnout. They come to the conferences, and we appreciate that, and I want to give a thanks to all the parents that did attend conferences, because their involvement and their partnership is the most important for their child's success. So we really appreciate the time they took to connect with all of us for conferences. In November, our ambassadors, under the guidance of Mr. Landwehr, put on a Veterans Day program for our students and staff. Our sixth graders had the privilege of also, in the month of November, witnessing a Quilt of Valor ceremony at the Gilbert VFW. And this was the first year we've ever been invited to that. And it was a really moving, touching experience for our sixth graders to be part of that. And I hope that we get continue to get invited back for that. It was really heartfelt appreciation for the sacrifices of those servicemen. And they reminded our sixth grade students about that importance of that gratitude, service, and community. And a few lucky sixth graders even got to participate in giving a service member a Quilt of Valor. So again, I hope that the Gilbert VFW is listening and they continue to invite us back to that. The last thing that happened in November was we had the Leos group from our high school come over to work with our fifth graders on a buddy project for Thanksgiving, and they did what they were thankful for. The Leos is a community service group at the high school run by students, so we always appreciate them coming and working with our littles. In December, the Leos Club came back and they worked with our third graders and made gingerbread houses. So that's always an annual event that's been happening the last couple of years. Also in December, the University of Minnesota Stars of Honor Award. Brandy, I think you're familiar with this program at Nashwauk-Keewatin as well. But it's where the University of Minnesota gives 5 complimentary tickets to students and families that where the students are are good students, they're responsible, they have good character and a good work ethic. So 2 students from each grade, from each class actually, were nominated by their teachers, and then they were given 5 tickets per family to go to a University of Minnesota basketball game that happened on December 21st. So we did have some families participate in that, and congratulations to those kids that were selected by their teachers. Also in December, our 6th grade choir students, along with the 6th grade North Stars choir students, went caroling at our local nursing homes, and then they went out for lunch afterward. And I just wanted to mention it because I did receive some feedback about how well behaved and how well they represented Laurentian and North Star. So I want to give a shout out to those music teachers and to the 6th grade choir students for representing us the Wolverine way, the way we want them to represent us. Also in December, right before break, we had our music performances under the direction of Mrs. Sandsted. We had the 1st grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade right before break. And she partnered with our ambassadors who traditionally at this time of December always host a food drive for the Quad Cities Food Shelf. So they always will collect food donations and collect cash. And Mrs. Sandsted decided to do her project-based learning activity, partnering with our ambassadors and to collect more money and more food for those, for our Quad Cities food shelf. So she called it Tunes for Tummies. So the families that came, they could donate cash or they could bring a non-perishable food item. Mr. Landwehr was hoping for 300 pounds of food and $250 in cash. And with having all of that community support, they were able to do 600 pounds of food, so they doubled it, and then $1,250 in cash. So that was phenomenal. So hopefully they'll continue to partner so that we can help our food shelf, local food shelf. The ambassadors also do a fundraiser. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but they do a fundraiser every year just to have some cash in order to provide some community outreach for families in need. So this year they did these friendship knots. They made these and then they sell them for $2. They made $700 by selling these. And what they do with those proceeds is, like this fall, I know Parkview had a student that they were doing a fundraiser for that fell under some hard times medically. And so they donated $200 to Parkview. Last year when we had a high school student that needed some extra support, they donated money to the high school students. So they do a fundraiser and then they keep those funds for when there's a family in need, and it doesn't have to be a Laurentian family. It can be a North Star, a Parkview, or somebody in our district. And I know if there was even somebody in an area school district that they were down on their luck, they would also help them out. So thank you to our ambassadors for being stewards out in our community and caring about other people. In January, this past Thursday, our sixth graders took their annual field trip to Giants Ridge, where they have that opportunity to go downhill skiing, snowboarding, cross-country skiing. And this experience is really special to so many of our students because they don't always get that opportunity to go to Giants Ridge and to go downhill skiing or snowboarding or cross-country skiing. So it's great for those students that have never had that opportunity to embrace those new challenges and just to enjoy the outdoors. And it also is one of those field trips that is lasting memories for them. They'll always remember that sixth grade day field trip to Giants Ridge. And that has been a tradition for many, many years that they do that. And then our fourth graders, they recently went skating at the Eveleth Hippodrome, where they go about 4 times a year. But this one was a little more special because they had some special guests there to help them skate. It was the Wilderness hockey team went there to volunteer their time and skate with them. And those kids, fourth grade students, came back and they were so excited to show me all the autographs they had. They had autographs on their arms. They had, autographs on paper, but they were so excited to show me the autographs of these hockey players. And also these hockey players will volunteer their time in the classroom. They're available in the afternoon, so some of my teachers have reached out to them and they'll come in and just read in a small group with the kids or work on assignments or whatever, wherever they're needed. So I want to give a shout out to that Minnesota Wilderness hockey team for their community service and for supporting our students at Laurentian. Our littles really enjoy having them there. They think they're superstars. So this Friday at 1:30 we have our second grade music performance in the gymnasium. And this one is under our music teacher, Mrs. Spots. And all the second graders and her, they've been working very hard practicing their songs. So I'm excited for that performance this Friday, and I cordially invite any of the board members to come if time allows, 1:30 this Friday to see the second graders perform at their concert. 2 more things. We finished our winter testing in reading and math using our FastBridge assessments to see how our students are progressing academically from the fall. And I haven't looked at every grade level yet. I'm still in the process of that. But what I have been seeing, the proficiency levels and the growth levels have been really good. Just going to highlight a couple of the highest ones that I've seen so far. So our second grade classroom went from 59% being proficient in reading to 86%. And so that's fabulous to have 86% of a second grade class in the proficiency level. And then our highest growth so far is in 6th grade math. We had 81% of our students make typical growth, which is normal growth, or aggressive growth, and that's phenomenal. 81% of our students, that's just really high growth. And what was I gonna say, 47% of the students out of that sixth grade class, so almost half of the kids made aggressive growth. So that's another tidbit that was pretty phenomenal. Because of all the great growth that sixth grade math did, Mr. Thompson, the math teacher, wrote positive notes acknowledging their growth in Power School to make sure that the parents are aware and that the kids get a kudos from mom and dad saying, hey, Mr. Thompson says you worked really hard and you showed such great, good job. It took me about an hour to process all of those write-ups and send them home, but it was well worth it, and I will spend hours sending positive messages home because it's just great for the parents to hear those positive messages. Part of the goal for this year from our staff was to recognize all of our students in some way, shape, or form, because everybody has a special quality, everybody deserves to hear good praise. And so the last time I was here in October, we had about 25% of our student body recognized, and now we have about 60% recognized. And we're halfway through the year, so we're right on track. With Mr. Thompson writing up all those sixth graders, all of the sixth graders are covered. Every sixth grader has a positive note, at least one. They have several, some students have several. Sixth grade has at least one. And then our fourth grade is close behind with almost everybody being recognized for something positive. And then I think fifth grade is next. So we're definitely on track to reach our goal. And that's all I have.
I love that you do that, I love that. That is so cool. And that's you never know how that can change a kid's life. You know what I mean?
Right, and I can't just take credit at Laurentian. I think district-wide we are doing that. That came out of our behavior committee policy or meetings that we've been having. So, we want to look at getting our discipline better and just having less referrals, less OSS, less ISS and everything. And part of that committee said we do need to recognize our kids. And so each building, we are keeping track of how many are being sent out. And our goal district-wide is for every student at Rockridge to get a positive.
Positive, love it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I just had one other thing too. What do you attribute the math increase to? Like what's going on?
This is a great group. Our sixth grade really is a great group. When they were in fourth grade, they're the ones that scored 80% in math in fourth grade. So I know they have that ability to do really well. It is a great group. You have to credit the teachers too. I mean, you have to credit Mr. Thompson and Mrs. Lalonde from last year and all of the teachers as well. But it is a group, a good group that just works hard, and so it all works out in the end. Then they have positive results.
Excellent.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Angie.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie.
Thank you, Angie.
Up next is ECFE and School Readiness 25-26 budget. Shannon?
Good evening, board members. So Shannon and I stand in front of you today, knowing that last year we talked about early childhood and school readiness. We had to make the tough decision to charge for those programs, knowing that it came with a lot of pressure on parents and things like that. So what we have in front of us today is some outside of the box thinking. And I'm hoping that as we go through this, you'll ask some questions and let us talk through it with you, and we'll see where we go. So what I would like to point out is in the white box at the top of that page are the expenses. Those are real numbers, like those are the numbers that Shannon just pulled off of the state websites that give us the actual numbers. The only guess number that you see there is the supplies and materials, okay? Our expenses don't change no matter what we do with the program.
where we run it, how we run it, with the kids. The expenses don't change because it's still accounting for 4 4-year-old classes, 2 3-year-old classes, and running our ECFE how we have, okay? What you see in the yellow box, we call the neighborhood plan. That is currently what we are running today. 2 classes of 4-year-olds at Parkview, 2 classes of 4-year-olds at the Laurentian, and a 3s class at Parkview, a 3s class at Laurentian, and our ECFE classes on both sides, okay? That is currently what we're running. That's currently what we're charging. If you see in the blue, we're charging $550 a month to cover those costs, which equates to about $49.50 a year for a family when they're paying for their students, if they're paying full price. Okay, remember we do have a sliding fee schedule scale if people qualify for that. That could still happen next year. It's all up to you what you decide. What we did, and when I say outside of the box thinking is Shannon, have brought to us a grand idea, at least I think it's a grand idea, knowing that it might not be grand for everybody and there's going to be pros and cons to it, but we get school readiness VPK funding, voluntary pre-kindergarten funding from the state for the Parkview Elementary, okay? The Laurentian Elementary does not qualify for this funding based on their formula. We have submitted for it, they don't qualify. They changed the VPK funding formula now to be a 4-year grant. So when we apply this year, it's going to be for 4 years. Again, I'm gonna tell you, Parkview is the one that gets that funding. We are allotted 78 seats at Parkview. The funding that comes in is based on the number of days the students attend that qualify for VPK. We currently don't receive any of that funding for Laurentian. So the out of the box thinking was that if we, like some other districts do have like a early childhood center, like a center type based thing, and put all of our 4-year-olds at the Parkview site, all of our 4-year-olds could qualify for VPK funding. So any student that's in those 4s classes would qualify for VPK funding. And then we would put the 3-year-old classes at the Laurentian with the expenses that we have, and I know the auditor's report just gave you what you're pulling out of general fund to cover the school readiness ECFE programs. With that being said, we're trying to give the savings and pass the savings along to the families is what we're trying to do.
How do the students currently get to the programs?
So I'm glad you asked. The 4-year-old classes are eligible for transportation. So our 4-year-olds can take the bus or they are parent drop off, whichever their family chooses. We did look at that. We talked to Bob Voss about that. That is the one cost that is not on here. I don't have, Bob Voss has not gotten those numbers to me yet. But with that being said, those 4-year-olds could still bus to the Laurentian. We would just put them on one of the other buses to transfer them over to Virginia, to the Parkview in the morning. It would be about a 10-minute difference from when we started, or they would get there about 10 minutes later than our other students on the buses, we figure. And then at the end of the day, when the nap time ended, we would put those kids back on the bus to meet their bus to go home back at the Laurentian. There will be a cost to that. So when you see that bottom line, I know it says there's approximately $39,000. There is going to be a cost for a driver and a bus on that.
And some of the VPK funds do cover that.
The
transportation piece. So like when you say all the children that are coming into Laurentian, the school is paying for that, but Parkview students with the VPK funds, some of those funds are covered. So this is for the 4-year-olds?
For the 4-year-olds.
3-year-olds?
3-year-olds are all parent transport.
Okay.
So, and they don't ever ride our school buses. So they would, if they're a Virginia 3-year-old, their parent would transfer them to the Laurentian. If they're an old Evelyn Gilbert side 3-year-old, they would still transfer them to Laurentian, drop them off and pick them up. Our 3-year-old classes are not full days.
Right. Okay.
Again, I know, like I said, it's outside the box thinking. I know you're probably gonna hear from parents. There's pros and cons to all of these, but the key point I want to get out is our goal is not to charge parents more, it's to charge parents less. The cost of the program is the same, it's just, are we getting the money from the state?
What is the space that you have at Parkview for 4-year-olds?
What is the space?
Like, you know, how much space do you have, like, to be able to take on the 4-year-olds that come from Laurentian?
I have an entire wing, I have an entire early childhood wing.
Okay.
Did you say there's 78 seats though? That would be paid for, right?
So if they qualify, so we are allotted 78 seats. We were allotted 78 seats this year, we used 18. So we are only getting money for 18 students currently from the state. We can, if they qualify, remember there's qualifications for VPK. Some of it is what the state has as qualifiers, and some of it is things that the district can set as qualifiers. So kids have to qualify for the VPK funding, but there are a lot of families that we find that qualify for that, which is a benefit to us because then the cost savings, like I said, goes to the families. So
how soon do you know how many students are in the four-year-old program that will qualify for that VPK fundings? Like how soon do you know?
When they enroll.
So what you'll probably see something coming through the board pretty soon that
Okay.
we're gonna submit, what we call like a eligibility verification. So you'll see the actual verification pieces that we're going to use for the students in our district.
Okay.
So what we're trying really hard is to make sure that everybody is going to qualify.
Okay.
If not, then it's only gonna be a set few that don't. We're looking at using some local type eligibility that looking at childcare within our area that if you're having trouble transporting, which a lot of people will. So if you live in Evelyn Gilbert, it's going to be difficult to get to your child to the Parkview School. So that would be a qualifier just by transportation alone. Kind of looking at, if a child is receiving free and reduced, English language speaker, if you're a Native American, experienced homelessness, if you've had an IEP or have, when you had your preschool screening, you'll see some developmental delays there.
Foster care, parent who is a migrant or seasonal worker, a parent that's been incarcerated or is receiving some mental health help. Those are the kind of more specific qualifiers, but there's some other pieces too that we'll bring to you. So that would go with anybody that enrolls in our program would have to fill out this sheet as well. So that's how we would know.
Okay, and when do they enroll?
Well, we send out the enrollment forms as soon as you, as a board, make a decision.
Okay.
We will send out enrollment forms saying these are the classes that we're offering. And we do that usually beginning of March. So we send them out middle of February, end of February, and we started enrollment right at the beginning of March then to try to get a good handle on numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, what did our enrollment do this year compared to last year that we started charging? I mean,
It declined.
by how much?
2 classes, 40 kids.
And what, was that like 3s or 4s or both over
That was just 4s. So I
Just
used,
4s?
prior to this year, I ran 4 classes at the Parkview.
Yeah.
And we had actually 2 classes, we actually had like 2.5 classes at the Laurentian. So really, we could say we declined by 2.5 classes, but.
How many kids, so is it about 20 kids in a class then, or?
There's 20 kids in a class.
Is that for 3-year-olds too, or?
No, 3-year-olds were around 15.
So we're talking about, and do you project, I mean, I know it's hard to know what your enrollment is, but do you think the 3-year-old, does that kind of stay consistent as far as like the number for 3-year-olds? Do you think like next year?
Because the 3-year-olds will be the ones coming up.
No, well, 2-year-old, you know what I mean? I'm just wondering how many 3-year-olds we're gonna need, or like if this plan stayed as is, how many, kids from the Virginia area would need to go to Laurentian?
So we're projecting about the same amount. The census is telling us there's about 60 children that would kind of fit the role in Evelyn Gilbert area and 60 in Virginia. But you have to remember too of those numbers that some of those children go to Head Start too.
I'm talking 4s or 3s.
I'm talking the 3s coming to the 4-year-old class for
Okay.
next year.
So so she's talking what's coming into 4s next year.
Okay, yeah, I'm wondering,
Yes.
the new.
She's talking about the 3-year-old class, so I believe that our 3-year-old class has stayed about the same.
About the same?
Yep.
Okay.
Even this year compared to last year.
Okay.
The 3s have stayed pretty similar. I mean, the 3s class is harder for some families, working families.
Yeah.
Because it's only part day and no
Yeah.
transportation.
Sure.
So what this does is it takes advantage of a grant program that is only at Parkview. And we're hoping that some of the families that didn't use it last year will possibly come back.
Correct, yeah, we want the kids at school, we want them there.
But, yeah,
And we don't
it's
wanna
gonna
charge the families, but knowing that, I mean, we can't run programs without the funding, so.
Right, well, and that affects teachers and everything.
It sure does.
Yeah.
It sure does.
So, no, I think as a board here, we have to do whatever we can to make sure it's lower and more feasible for these parents.
And I'm happy to have, I mean, if it's something where you as a board believe that we need to
Have more
conversation and have more input, I don't know what you guys.
Have you gotten a lot of input from parents or not? Yeah,
I have
Kind
actually.
of plan or no?
There was no input that came directly to me.
Yeah.
There were a few things that had gone out on social media and I actually knew the family, so I had reached out and talked a little bit just because there was some misinformation that was put out there and I wanted to clarify that it wasn't accurate. And other than that, no, I have not had feedback.
So let me just clarify, so from Evelyn Gilbert to Virginia, so those 3-year-olds that will be 4-year-olds, there'd be about similar 40 kids that would have to go to Virginia, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and some people did email me, just kind of wondering.
Yeah.
You know, we really don't have an answer yet because we're waiting for you.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, this is awesome. I'm applauding you for thinking outside the box and trying to save money. That's like a huge thing. It's such a burden for people, but yeah, I can just see the only issue, obviously the transportation issue.
And I will, I was one of those parents that had their kid when Evelyn Gilbert ran their pre-K program in Gilbert. My son had to ride the bus from the Franklin over to the Gilbert program. So, there has been busing in the past. But yeah, I get it. There's pros and cons, like I said, but my goal in this is to have the kids at school and to make sure that we're giving the savings to the families and we're utilizing the most amount of funding we can get from the state.
And what we really want to is the students to stay in our district. When we're offering something that's kind of out of a lot of young families' reach, they're going other places to find that, and we really want to make sure that we're including all of our families within our district and making it feasible for them to come to school.
Absolutely.
We will still have the scholarships available, we will still have the sliding fee, we will still have all of those things that we currently have. It's just utilizing our money to the greatest extent.
You had a great recommendation, so kudos to you.
Well, yeah, part of it is we were leaving all these seats unused, so it's money we weren't taking in. So I'm like, let's see if the people will support us for 1 year. And I guess that's the other thing too, is that we're just saying for the 4-year-olds, you're coming here this year and then you're going back to your community school.
Sure.
So that grant is just for the Parkview.
It is, it's
Specific.
building
It's
specific.
Building specific.
It's building
Not city
specific.
specific.
Part of it is really looks at the free reduced lunch numbers, and Parkview's a lot lower. It's all state ranking, so it's nothing that we rank. It comes from the state. So state ranks the schools
Based on your socioeconomic.
Right.
So that was one of my questions. How are you working that with the free and reduced lunch when there's less people filling out those forms now with?
Oh, no, Randy, we track them down.
Yeah.
I will tell you right now that at Parkview, if we have forms that aren't filled out, it's a handful and that's it.
Okay.
Because we do track those down. And we make sure that, and it also helps our families that don't want to.
Right, and it
Sure.
will be a qualifier, so I think that kind of helps too, if you're letting families know what the qualifiers are. That if you feel like you could be free and reduced, please check that box because, it really helps our school to bring money.
Yeah, that form affects a lot.
It does.
And it's even more, I think they added on this year.
Yeah, the educational benefits.
Exactly.
It's very important to fill it out. And then the other question was, another part of the emails that, as a school board member I received was about, is there an option for not having to go every day?
We currently don't have that option, because as you know, and last year, the reason we moved into this situation is because our teachers are licensed teachers that are on your teacher's contract that are full-time 1.0 FTE teachers. So they are teaching the 5 days a week. We do, in our early childhood program, really tailor it to those kids, though. I mean, they are taking a nice long rest. They're doing things age appropriate while they are there those 5 days. So we don't. It's awfully difficult to have a buffet option when you're trying to run the program and get everybody.
Well, in the curriculum, and that's difficult if you don't have them there every day.
It was just something that was brought up in the email, so wanted to address it.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
No.
Are we
Let us know how you
taking
want to-
action on this evening? Are we-
You board members, you can think about it and we would bring it up at the next board meeting in February.
I think that'd be good.
Okay.
Let's do that.
I think we need bus information, cost.
We'll get it.
We could have the bus information, maybe.
I will double check with Bob Boss tomorrow when I see him at our meeting and try to send that out.
Perfect.
Okay?
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much.
Moving along, we have 5.4, student representative report.
It's been a minute. It's pretty short and sweet, but at the high school specifically, we're having snow week this week. That gets everyone kind of a little bit more motivated. It's also the first day of our new semester, and I can speak for mostly everyone that we are all relieved that the first semester is over. But AP Psych students are traveling to the courthouse today and tomorrow to watch a trial. I think that's a really good way that we're getting our students out there, job shadowing, doing things like that. I find that really important going into the end of my senior year, so I'm glad we're doing things like that. We have Women in Engineering coming up February 31st that students are invited to. Finals week was last week for many. It's a learning curve, but we're all figuring it out. Group of senior students, I'm especially excited to say this, is that we're going to Washington, D.C. this late March. I think that's going to be really awesome. FAFSA night is tonight for seniors, so those benefits are out there. Our student athletes all across the board are doing really well this season. And our clubs are as busy as ever. Like they had,
The Leo's Club?
Yes, as she had mentioned earlier, the Leo's Club is busy as ever. And NHS, Student Council, I know DECA's doing stuff. I know everyone's really, really busy, but we are all having a pretty good year.
So since you are, this is your first meeting since we've had
Yes.
new school board members, do you want to just kind of introduce yourself
Yes,
briefly and kind of tell them what you're involved in school so they're familiar with you too?
Yes, I'm Cora. I am a senior at the high school right now, and I'm involved in Leo's Club, Lions Club, NHS, Student Council. I'm class president. I sit on the board, obviously. I'm involved in dance outside of the school, and I don't know, just busy, busy, busy. I take CIS, PSEO, and AP classes as well, so I like to stay busy.
Good.
That's
Awesome.
me.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It would have been easier for her to tell her what she's not involved in.
Okay,
Yeah, that's all I got. It's
Thanks,
pretty
Cora.
mellow.
5.5. Superintendent's report?
Oh, thank you. Members of the board, first, quick hockey update, of course, because I think everybody sleeps up here with a hockey puck under their pillow. So on Tuesday, there is a hockey game, and recently, and they're just so everybody and people watching on camera, they are going to recognize Willard Eikola and Mike Sertich two longtime players and coaches, one in Edina, one for the University of Minnesota Duluth. So there'll be a little presentation on Tuesday hockey game, so come on out. So I just want to let you know that they're going to be recognized at the hockey game on Tuesday.
Can I just make a quick note? Just a quick note that we're thinking about the kids that were involved in an accident on the Rockridge Junior Gold team. So just thinking about them.
Thank you, Member Stewart. Now we're going to go to the equity plan. So this purpose of this is to update the board on the equity plan. Now, let me first start by saying the equity plan was the last part of the strategic plan that that we put in front of you and that eventually you approved. The other components of the strategic plan came first. This one took a little bit longer. This was when we did it, this is 2-ish years ago. And so this one took a little bit longer. There was about 25 people 5-ish meetings. Some of the folks in the audience are responsible for adding weight to me because they brought great food to the event. I'm still on the treadmill trying to work that off. But we met about 5 times, and then their ideas came to you as a board, and then you approved that. So I'm going to go through the equity plan on where we are, and this is probably how to think about it. You have a number of strategic plans. We don't have a strategic plan that's done. We don't have one that everything has been done that we said we were going to do. Because the way the strategic plans were written, they were in process, they were in action. We're modifying these constantly. So when I think of a strategic plan, we have where we want to go, we have some ideas and suggestions on where we want to go, and then we look at, see where we are. If they're working, great, we keep going. If they're not working, then we stop doing it and we do something else. So it's always kind of a movement that goes like this, slowly forward. They're never, once we get to here, then we're going to stop. And that's similar to how we've done with the other plans. Now, I will say this. You've heard from a number of individuals tonight. I will say this, and for those who are watching, if you are doubting some of what you are hearing, we do have kids in our district who some have very different experiences than other kids. So it depends upon your background, where you're from, viewpoints of everyone. So there are kids in our system, and these are our kids. They're nobody else's kids. They are our kids. It's our job to take care of them. So we do have some kids who their experiences are not what some of our other kids are experiencing. So we want to do what we can do to make sure that all kids, they get a fair shot, they're treated fairly, and they're left, how do I say, I can't say this any simpler, they're left alone, leave them alone, but they're allowed to flourish. And that's what we want all of our kids to do. And so as part of this, what I'm thinking is that I believe that some of the, we'll talk to some of the equity folks in the area. They'll have some additional ideas to do. We'll meet with them. We'll take some of the ideas and suggestions, and then the goal would be to make this better, to make the equity plan better, to make so it's working for more kids. I'm going to point out some bad data. I'm not hiding anything, and so I'm going to tell everyone in the room. And if you want to see a copy of it, it will be we'll post it online so anyone will be able to go and get and see the equity plan, some of the detail, because there's a lot of stuff in it. The first thing, members of the board, on the equity plan, and just stop me if you have a question at any moment in time. These are just definitions that the group used from MDE. They're the same definitions, they're there. And just so the board knows that we did look at those definitions on when we were creating the equity plan, because it's very clear that if you talk about a word, sometimes not everybody has the same meaning of what that word means. So I put those in there so you can see what those are. Next thing coming up, there are two main parts of the equity plan. The first one is equal opportunities for all students. That's the first one. The second one, the big plan, and that's the one right after this one. It's that, it's our students and staff will have and demonstrate the skills to be respectful of individuals from other cultures and backgrounds. So if you look for the green banner at the top of the page, members of the audience, the board's looking at about 10 pages of stuff right now. So if you look at the green banner, those are the two parts of the equity plan. So the ones that we came up with, students will have equal opportunities, that's one. The second big goal was our students and staff will have and demonstrate the skills to be respectful of individuals from other cultures and backgrounds. Those are two big ones. I'm going to start with the first one as far as equal opportunities for students. Now, some of the things that are in here are duplicates. So you're going to see me, and I'm the one who typed the information in here. So I'm going to direct you to look at the red type. That means that's the new information. From the time that the equity plan was created, this is new information. This is what's happening here and what has happened. So, and on the lower right-hand corner, there is a page number. It says 55. For members of the audience, that just means there were 55 prior pages of the strategic plan. So I'm going to get to resources later on because they're repeated later on. I'm going to page 58, 56. All of our strategic plans are done in rubrics. It doesn't say on all of our plans, we're going to have this done by this date. They don't say that. It's like we're moving from here to here to here to here. Over here means we just started. Now it's a little better. Now it's even better, and it's really going well. On the equity plan, on both of them, I believe we're to the far left. I think that's where we still are. On the first part, let's talk about the indicators, lagging and leading indicators. What that is we have goals. But if you're looking for things that are happening, you have to pay attention to those because that's going to tell you whether you're getting close or not. So some of the information we use, and you talk about these, the Minnesota Student Survey, I'm looking at the red stuff, if you want to track me. We look at PCN data, that's the Cassandra Haney. I think we're in year 4, 5 of that one. We do get data from that. The equity group did recommend consistent celebrations of diversity school-wide. I think we need to do a better job on that one. Next one, the equity group did suggest hiring and more intentional hiring of staff for diversity. We have not done well with that. This year we have 1. Now, part of that was because in some of our groups you were reducing the money, so there just simply weren't jobs there. But that's an area we need to improve on. Next one, tracking of complaints. How do we keep track of complaints? We said that we wanted a way to process and keep track of complaints. So what happened is that the teachers and people working in the system, they put things in through something called Power School. That's how all people track things through Power School. We put a form on the district website that anyone can go to. They can put anything they want on there, and then they can anonymously send it in, and then we respond and follow on that. So you have had some individuals who have filled out the reform anonymously, and they have sent it in.
Are you saying by mail? That they've sent it?
Sometimes you get them by mail, sometimes they just drop them off in a principal's office. Most of the ones we get, we have are by mail. And then we route them to, and take a look at them.
Okay.
The next thing was, diversity and behavior issue. We were involved and we still belong to the NLC. They did go through a process to stop the over-identification of Native Americans into the special ed process. You might remember Beth Shermone was up here talking to the board about the process that was used because we were, as a NLC, and you're part of the NLC, over-identifying Native American students for special ed. We went through a couple years of process with MTS and that number was dropped. And so then that process stopped because now it was more consistent with what the federal government at the time, which was pointing that out, was taking a look at that. So that one I put on there.
MTS, what's that? MTSS?
MTSS.
Multi-tiered systems of support.
What it is, it's a way of looking at students and putting the help where the kids need the help. So rather than saying, oh, there's 5 kids in the back of the classroom, they don't get it. I don't know what's going on there. You have a system and a process in place to talk about those students so that the first level might be you bring them to your student assistance team. And then you talk about them with deans, with the principals, with the counselors. If that doesn't work, then you might go to trying some intervention, seeing if you can do a couple things that would make it better. And if that doesn't work, then you might end up, you're talking to the parents throughout the whole process here. And then you might take a look at a special ed type system. Is that where we need to go? And the answer might be no, but it might be yes. So the whole idea is to do interventions earlier, sooner, faster, so you don't need to get into where the problem is really massive. And if you pay attention to that, it does work. And it does, and our staff work on it. And so what we want to do is intervene early. So that's generally what the MTSS process is. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
The next part on here is I've put on here the demographics of our students, and this is from the 24-25 MDE report card. So if you're wondering what the breakdown demographic of our students is, it's right here. For example, 7.1% of our students American Indian, 0.3 Asian, Black or African American, 1.2, Hispanic or Latino, 1.2, Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, 0, other indigenous peoples, 0.1, 2 or more races, 4.8, and then the largest group is the white, 84.3. Now, the important thing to know about these is that we don't pick these categories. The parents tell us where they comfortable with, and whatever they put on the forms, that's how it gets recorded. So these are as reported by the parents. And so when you take a look at this, it's very apparent, yep, most of our kids are Caucasian, about 84% of them. And about 16% of our kids are non-Caucasian. That makes sense so far? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to show you some data. So now that you know what the numbers are for the kids overall, I'm going to show you some in-school suspension and suspension numbers. And generally what you're looking for is you want the suspensions to be about what your student demographics are. Sometimes it's a little off because of the low numbers, but you generally want them to be about the same area. So on the next page, and if there's a typo, it's my fault. If I did the math wrong, it's my fault, nobody else's. So the first one you're looking at, the out-of-school suspensions, and these are on here because this came out of the equity group, the tracking of student behavior. How are we going to do that? And we do that through PowerSchool. That's where these numbers came from. So there's 2 years listed, 23-24, the full year, and then 24-25 up till now. And those years are in there because these are the numbers after the equity report was done. So I didn't go back prior to the equity report. So in this one, when you're looking at it, and I put them by buildings, so you can see exactly what's happening in each one of the buildings. And I'm gonna go to the district level, which is the very bottom one. I'll read the numbers out loud for the audience. So when you're looking at the district numbers, so looking at the ones from for last year, of all the out-of-school suspensions, 73% of all the out-of-school suspensions were Caucasian kids. 17% of the out-of-school suspensions were 2 or more races. That's higher than what it should be. Black or African American, 6.7%. That's higher than what it should be. Asian, 1.6. American Indian, this is our Anishinaabe group, but we do have some who are not from the Anishinaabe tribe. So 13.4%, that's higher than it should be. When you roll over to the 24-25 school year, the numbers are approximately about the same. Now, so I'm going to pause for a second here. So when I look at this, and I know we're going to be talking about this some more, so this tells me that we need to have more internal conversations and other conversations about how our kids are being disciplined. What's happening to them? I mean, is it being applied fairly like it should be? I think that's a fair question to ask. So I think that's one thing that we need to take a look at. On the next page, these are the in-school suspensions. And you can see by buildings, I've got it all broken down by buildings. Now, one thing you're going to notice here on the in-school suspensions, especially in the lower grades, they've almost disappeared. There are very few in-school suspensions at the elementary level. Overall, I'm going down to the district level one, the same area. You can take a look and see that on the district level, last year, most of our in-school suspensions, it's our Caucasian kids, 76.3% of all of the in-school suspensions, it's Caucasian kids. However, we also have 10.3%, 2 or more races. It shouldn't be that high. The American Indian, 10.7, that's a little bit higher than where you'd like to see it. And then when you roll into the 24-25, the numbers change a little bit, but not that much different. And some of them have some low numbers, like this year so far, I'll go to the Black or African American, 3.7% of all of the in-school suspensions are Black or African American kids are receiving those. And their population overall for us is 1.2%. Now, it's something for us to take a look at. So just looking at the numbers, what the numbers are telling me is that we need to have some more discussions, look out to see how discipline is being meted out, who's getting the discipline, and then what the consequences are being at the same time. I think those are fair things for us to take a look at.
How about a support person? You know, we have an Indian Ed on staff. How about a support person for our Black community or, you know, Black-brown community?
I believe they would love to have one. And I believe that you're going to be involved in some discussions on that topic.
Okay.
And I think we've unofficially had.
We had a cultural liaison.
We did.
Because you and I sat on that group with her last spring. I don't know if they presently, I don't think we presently have one though.
No, you do. No, you do not.
We do.
So there's some, I'm going to keep going here, but keep thinking about how to make things better for our kids. I think that's the way to go. I mean, it's not gonna be useful to pretend something isn't happening or to be angry at someone else because they're seeing it differently than you're seeing. And I think this is, I'm gonna use this word, I think this is an opportunity for Rock Ridge and the east end of the range to stand up and try to do some things for kids to make things better for our kids in the building and in the district. That's the way I think we should be taking a look at that. I'm gonna go on some more. I'm on page 59. I'm looking at the attendance data. That's another common one. This is also from the equity group, attendance data. And when you look at the attendance data, this is pulled from PowerSchool. Everybody's going to school. There isn't a gap. It's all students are going 93% last year. So far this year, it's also 93%. Our lowest group is 89.9%. Everybody's going to school. It doesn't matter what group you're in, they're all going to school.
That's awesome.
And this comes from the equity group, what's monitor attendance. The next group is inclusive classes. Do we have some inclusive classes? Meaning that, do we have classes where some kids can't get into and other kids can get into? That's what that means. So those classes have pretty much been eliminated in the elementary school. We do intervene with kids who need help in reading and math, and you just heard some indications about that. And they do that academically. They're short-term pull-outs. It's not for the whole year. So if you need extra math, it's not like you're getting pulled off the entire rest of the year. It's short-term until your skills are up at a certain level. The next one I'm going, and I'm not hiding any data here. We also took a look at the high school courses and the advanced courses in the high school. Most of them there are PSEO. Who's going to PSEO? Who's taking college into schools courses? Who's going to the advanced placement classes? Those are typically what most people perceive as the advanced courses. And when you take a look at this, we've got last year's numbers all the way through, and then we have this year's numbers through half of the year. And so you can take a look at this, and you don't need to be a statistician to see what's happening here. What's happening here is let's go to CIS, college into school classes. Of all of our kids who took college into schools last year, 96% were Caucasian. Now that's higher than what our demographics are. So just knowing that number, that's telling me that we have some kids who are smart and bright and who could be taking these courses, but for some reason they're not in the courses. And so we need to figure out what's going on and get some of these kids into the courses. In addition to that, you see the same thing in PSEO. So PSEO, these are families and students making decisions. This isn't us putting funds into PSEO, but of all the kids taking PSEO, last year 90%, so 89% were Caucasian. This year 90% are Caucasian. In the advanced placement, last year 93%, and we don't have as many in advanced placement were our Caucasian kids, and this year every single one is Caucasian. So just taking a look at that, you can see that we need to do some additional work because this is telling us we have some students in the high school right across the parking lot who should be taking, I know this, who should be taking some of these courses and could be taking some of the courses. Is it encouragement? What is it? Is it because there's a number of things it could be, but I think that's one area for us to take a look at. I'm going to just pause right now before I keep going. Any questions from the board? All right, I'm going to keep going. I've already talked about tracking discipline, athletics. I'm going to come up that a little bit. It's in a different area. Then the equity group talked about integrating activities and celebrations. You can see in every building, there's some type of events that occur, whether it be, and I'm not gonna go through all of them, Black History Month, Indigenous Day, Orange Day, Web belongs. There's some others that are not listed here, but in every building, there is something going on in regards to consistently integrating activities and celebrations. Going to the next page, on page 60, this was again another idea from the group, consistently bringing in speakers and staff development activities, hiring specific individuals for equity. I've got some of the buildings listed. This is an area, frankly, we need to do better. And I think we can do better. I think we can do more on this one. So this is an area that we can do better on.
I was on the Zoom meeting that FEMA had last week. I was one of the 4, I think, that were in it. And I heard them say that they had given you a list of some speakers that we could bring in. So I think we need to do that. You know, I think that's an important, if they think they're good speakers and would be advantageous to our students, I think since we have the list, we should definitely do that. Because it hasn't been done yet.
The next one involved embedding multicultural curriculum. That's another recommended that you adopt it. This is a long list, and I've got all the buildings listed. These are some of the things that they're doing curricular-wise in regards to multicultural curriculum. This is an area that has actually changed. When you buy textbooks, etc. I was an English teacher. Most of the stories used to be written by dead white guys. And that was the canon of literature that everybody read. That is not the way it is now in the English classes. So if we buy a textbook or something, a lot of times it's just a lot better. You have authors from Africa, Asia, etc. It's way better. It's better than what it used to be. So you've got the listed, see the events that are listed. The next one is calendars with special events listed. You can see what the buildings are doing right there. This is an area, yes, could we do better? Yes. Safe and anonymous reporting, already talked about the anonymous reporting form on the website. We may come up and you may have a recommendation come to you saying, hey, let's do, okay, that's good. Let's do another thing. We think this one's gonna help more. There's a budget. All principals get a budget. All principals, they spend money on equity-related events and activities. And I know that's up for, some people will say that's not enough, and I freely admit that. We don't give the principals enough to do what they really should do. So I'm agreeing on that one. All right, that's the end of one of the 2 equity plans. I'm going to keep going because I think this is important so everyone knows exactly where we are at. The next one, this is the big equity plan that students and staff will have and demonstrate the skills to be respectful of individuals from other cultures and backgrounds. And here's what the group came up with that the board passed. Student diversity groups. This one's been a struggle. We do not have the diversity groups. I believe that what the group wanted when they made the recommendation to the school board. So that is an area I believe we need to work on better. And this is also one of the areas that we need individuals who don't look like me helping out on some of these groups. We need someone who's not Caucasian helping out here. Relationship building, this kind of flows into that. You can see some of the things that we have on there as far as, because a big part of this is relationships. And I'm going to say it again so everybody understands what I'm saying is that relationships are the heart of everything. We do have lots of kids who they got friends all over the place. they have relationships, they're out for everything is going well. We have other students who it's tougher. And it's not because they don't have social skills. It's because they have other roadblocks in front of them that some of their other students don't have. So I think that's an area for us to take a look at. Minnesota State High School League activity, that came up. Together we make a difference. And so this is one we also took a look at. We did host one of these events last year. Minnesota State High School League does these on a regular basis. It's called the Together We Make a Difference. We hosted one last year. I've also put down in here the percentage of our students who are out for Minnesota State High School League sports. So when you look at this right here, for example, this year, I'm looking at this year halfway, American Indian, 5.88% of all of our American Indian kids are in some type of Minnesota State High School League sport. 3.15% of our kids as listed as other are in it. We have Black, not Hispanic. That's how Minnesota State High School League codes it. 1.26% are in sports. And in our white kids who are not Hispanic, Caucasian kids, 87% of them are in. This one's actually pretty close to the true demographics. So what's happening is kids are going out for sports about how you would expect them to be based upon the demographics. They're also coming to school about what you would expect based on the demographics. The next one on there, are we paying attention to Dr. Martin Luther King and Inclusivity Week? I listed there what the buildings are doing. I won't go into each one of them there, but we do need to pay attention to these important dates. I've already talked about the discipline measure, so I'm going to skip that right now. Staff restorative conversations. I know this has been a topic for some individuals. And I'd like to make sure I tell the board, I know you know this, but let me just say this. The discipline, first of all, the equity group came up and said, one of the things we'd like to see are more restorative conversations. In other words, let's just not punish the kids every single time. Let's have some restorative conversations, see if they can make things better or make things right by having restorative conversations. That same topic also came up from your teachers when they were coming through the discipline committee, and they were standing up there telling you some of the things that they wanted. This is also one of the things that they said they wanted to do. So you can see we have sent some individuals to training on restorative conversations. It is not the solution to everything. It's not, there's kind of a little bit of a myth that if you do something restorative, it's easy. It's actually not. If you do it well, it's tougher, especially on the person who did the wrong. They actually have to do more than just sit in detention or something like that. So this is what's happening. We're moving forward with on the restorative conversations. Mental health consultation, that did come up with extra mental health consultation. That's maybe an area for us to take a look at. You can see what's happening in each one of the buildings. Getting closer to the end here, equity literacy, that came up as a recommendation. This is related to the curriculum, but this is specific on equity literacy, what is happening. And so you can see in each one of the buildings, some of the, and usually these are books, literacy, that kids are reading. Sometimes it's whole classes reading them. Sometimes they're clusters of kids who are reading them, but these are the main ones that our kids right now are seeing at the different buildings. The next one, going on to the, you heard a couple people talk about the anti-racism policies. Listed here, these are your current policies. These are the ones from MSBA that they recommend to you. When you look at this is where there's some part in each one of these policies about anti-racism. However, I think it probably would be, and I know you're going to eventually put committees together and have them get assignments going. This will be one I believe that the policy committee should take a look at. Take a look at your current policies. And it is true, there are some districts who have adopted their separate equity policies. MSBA doesn't do that, but it's something for the policy committee to take a look at anyway. The last one here, and I think we're to the end of it, is to the positive community norms. This is the PCN grant, because at that point in time, the PCN grant had just started. We're now in year 4 of the PCN grant. So those are some of the things that the PCN grant has been doing. So I'm going to, after that, what I've just said, I'm going to pause and I guess say comments from the school board or questions you want to have. But I think this is something for us to have ongoing conversations with the community, with the equity groups, some of our kids. And I'm sure we'll be talking about this during the budget cycle also. What do you want to do? Do you want to do anything different than what you've been doing? I think you might. And like that. So this is going to take a little bit for us to play out to make things better for our kids.
I like how you put this all together and, you know, showing us what we're currently doing, what we need to have do some work on, where we're growing. I like this information.
It's very
I
well put
appreciate
together.
it. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
And I do know we'll hear from the equity groups and then we'll follow through and then we'll have further discussions and I'm sure we'll be back as a board.
So if we wanted to add somebody to staff, we'll have to decide that before budget, after budget, you know, if that's something that we want to look at. Before budget.
Yes, which is coming up soon anyway.
Right.
So what I'm going to suggest is let's talk to the folks, get some additional feedback from them and have some conversation. Because what I don't want to do is go like this. Everybody go to the corners. Let's actually talk. And this is very hard. I don't want to get polarized like some groups and areas and parts of the country are getting polarized. We should be able to talk about this and come up with ways that are better. So we'll talk, and then when the budget process, we'll have to talk about money, shifting resources around. And so they'll almost happen simultaneously, I think, because of the timing, because you'll need to do the final approval no later than June 30th, but Andrea really will want to know end of March.
Well, I just think, you know, if we decide on hiring somebody, we have to have the job description ready, and it might not be easy to find somebody, so we need to get it out there ASAP, you know, looking for an individual.
Yes, but it will be difficult. However, I did hear some suggestions Thursday night about where we may look and some agencies that might help
We
us.
probably have a description already, don't we?
I will look, but we'll first have to, once you get your committee set, this will have to go to the personnel committee, and then it'll eventually come back to the full board.
We'll have those committees for the next meeting, ready to go.
Oh, yep.
Noelle, I don't know what happened, but I never got the letter that you sent out to the public and, you know, to the parents. I never got that email. So
I'll make sure you have it.
Okay.
We might not have shifted our, on the technology front, wondering whether we added you to this. We'll take care of it.
Okay.
Okay. We
I
can
just
do
want to
that.
know that.
I have a
I don't think
question
so
too, like, as far as I can see that, you know, the curriculum, that's easy to show what's been done or with but how do you implement like the other stuff, like just like how kids feel, and how do you implement that, like really?
It's tougher, but it's doable.
Monitor that too, like.
What districts who have gone through this process, it's tough. Because front of all, you have to change systems, you have to change processes, you need to look at how you're doing things. And then in addition to, you need to put some people in strategic places and locations. So there's an outlet, there's a place where kids can go and they can talk. And then you have to keep looking at the data. And then like, I'll go to the college in the schools one, so I'm pretty sure there's some things we can do differently as far as how kids are registering for college in the schools to get more kids registering for college in the schools or helping them. We can change the process. If there's something wrong with the process on that one.
Does Emily, our Native American instructor, advisor, does she do any data, on incoming students that maybe want to discuss some things with her and, how do they remedy it? And I know there's private data issues, but I was just wondering if she has any data that she's done in her position.
She does, and maybe she usually comes to the school board once a year and updates you, and maybe we need to get her in here and give you an update of what she has and what she has available, but there's lots of data there.
Okay.
As far as what the Indigenous kids are experiencing from their point of view. Yep, we can get that for you.
I was just gonna ask, as far as PSEO goes, do the colleges have certain requirements too for grade point averages and those kinds of things as far as what makes a student eligible to?
They do.
So it's not just us, it's the college that has those as well?
Yes, the college, on the PSEO, some of that is run by the college as far as what their standards are. But another part of this, taking a look at it, would be whatever the grade point average is, okay, why are so many kids flunking? Why are so many kids getting Ds? Who's flunking? Who's getting the Ds? That's when you start breaking it down. And this is where many schools, and we may end up going there, you may tell me you want to go there, which I believe might be a good idea, to have someone watching out, helping kids so that they're aware of what's happening and they're aware of the processes, so we get kids in the right programs where we know that they'll be successful. Because we're running a career academy, it's academic, but it's also social skills, it's working with other people, and the reality is that all of our kids, they're going to have to work with kids from multiple cultures. And that's the way the world is. And our kids need to do this. So I think in addition to this, it's also working with all of our other kids so that they're aware of what they are doing and saying. I think that's also part of it.
So we had talked about, because last year, that was kind of a big thing for us, was bullying and language and kids not being held responsible for things they were saying and doing. And we did seem to try to change procedures and really work on that. And I know at the meeting Confer, they said things are going a lot better with that, with following through and not turning a blind eye or whatever to whatever is being, said or done or whatever. I'm just wondering, is that, how do you see that, and specifically like in the high school?
That is still continuing. From the total student population, it is better if you talk to the teachers. Now, if you talk to the kids, you might get a different viewpoint. A lot of the kids might say, yeah, sure, it's better. Yeah, they're tightening up. There's fewer people messing around. But if you talk to some other kids, they may say, no, it's the same. I don't see any difference. So what we need to do, in addition to what we've already done, is start taking a look at, with the breakdown, who is saying things are better. And then also, where are things not better? Because sometimes you can get fooled by bigger numbers and believe that it's going well for everyone, where sometimes it might be, but it might not be going well for everyone. That's where I think we need to go.
Okay. Well, it's a good start to the conversation.
So are you going to plan a meeting, or we're gonna get together, or?
You're going to be involved, so we'll talk. I'm not getting out of anything here.
Can you tell I'm gonna be involved?
So we'll talk, I'll be back to you. We may have some more study sessions. We may have some other sessions to continue talking about this, about some of the other things that we need to switch and do.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else for Dr. Schmidt? Okay, thank you for that. Moving on, 5.6 Treasurers Report. Can I get a motion?
I will make that motion.
I'll support.
Motion by Leonard, support by Culver Dahl. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Meeting announcements. The next regular meeting will be Monday, February 10th, 2025 at the Rockbridge Admin Building. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second. By Westby, supported by Westby. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Which Westby made the motion?